Good day, gentles all. Welcome to Local Chronicler training. I'm Baroness Beatrix Fontaine. Probably by the time you're watching this, I'm not going to be Kingdom Chronicler anymore, but I'm hoping I can still give you a little bit of instruction on how to be a local chronicler. So first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to step into this important leadership role in your barony. It can be fun, it can be really informative and helpful, and for some groups, it's absolutely essential for their existence. So thank you for the good work that you're doing for your group and for your kingdom. Now, what is required for a local newsletter? Well, there are a few things that you absolutely must have. The first is a name or a header and a cover sheet. Different baronies and different shires and have different names for their documents. So you need to have what's the name of your group. For example, for the barony of Bordermarch, theirs is called the Trumpeter. So that's the name of your publication. There's usually some kind of fun joke about it. If you're not sure what the name is of your publication, you need to talk to somebody, figure that out, and make sure you include it on a regular basis. If you don't want to do a full cover, you can do a top banner like people do in professional newspapers, but you can also make it a cover like a magazine. You also need names and contact information for all branch officers. You need their SCA name, you need their mundane or legal name. Now, some people don't really want their legal name out, or they have a nickname that they regularly use. You can use their nickname, but we need something other than just everybody's SCA name. And then you also need an officer email address for each of your different offices. You can do people's private email. This isn't really recommended, but in order to do that, you need them to have in writing permission for you to publish their private information. Really, all of this information you need to have in writing saying, I give you permission to share this information. Another thing you absolutely need is the times and locations of your regularly scheduled meetings. So these are things like your populace meetings, your officer meetings, when you have fighter practice, if you have ANS nights, if you have scribal nights, if you have regular let's all just hang out nights, times that you regularly meet. You need to have this in your newsletter. This can just be a list. Hey, populace, every third Thursday at 6 p.m. at such and such location. You could do it as a graphical calendar where you actually have a grid with the numbers on it and the different dates. And embedded in that, like you would for a calendar at home, you say, hey, on this date we have this, this, that, the other. Anything that conveys that information clearly. Another thing you're required for the newsletter is this legal disclaimer. Pretty much this word for word. This is the September 2024 issue of the Trumpeter, publication of the Barony of Bordermarch for the Society of Creative Anachronism, Incorporated SCA Inc. The Trumpeter is available from. You need to include your modern name and officer email address for you, the chronicler. And then say, it is not a corporate publication of SCA Inc. and does not delineate SCA Incorporated policies, copyright. Right now it's 2024, so you'd make sure you include that modern year. Society for Creative Anachronism Incorporated for information on reprinting artworks, We'll assist you in contacting the original creator. Please respect the legal rights of our contributors. Please have this legal disclaimer in every single issue and update it accordingly. The only thing you're really going to have to change is the month, the year, and then the modern year. Those are the things that are going to have to be updated. Please use these words exactly, again, with the text in bold corrected for your answer. It's a legal thing, so we want to keep this consistent for every single newsletter. Make sure you include credit for everything that you use. For example, if you have clip art, where'd you get it from? Is it from a website? Is it from a publication software? You need to include at some point artwork on page 7 from, especially one of the things a lot of people are using lately is called Canva. Canva, you need to credit like artwork by Canva on pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 if you're using that particular software. If you have a photograph, you need to know who took it, and you also need to credit them. Hey, so-and-so took this picture. You can either do it as a caption under the picture, or you can do it and have like a separate credits section of your newsletter where you say on page so-and-so, picture blah, 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 was taken by so-and-so. We can't just download pretty stuff off the internet and just say, it's okay, we got it off the internet. Like, we have to have permissions. If you have a drawing, an article, or a poem, you need to say who wrote it. One of the things we've run into in the past is sometimes people use pseudonyms. So, for example, sometimes people do like advice columns and they say Smart Olga giving advice. They don't really want to tell who Smart Olga is, but you still need to give them credit. At one point, you can't just say Smart Olga written by Smart Olga. You have to actually give credit for who it is. Similarly, if you have like an online game, crossword puzzle, word search, right? If you downloaded it off the internet or used a particular app, even if it says free for use, you need to say where you got it from. So again, you either give credit right next to the submitted item or have a separate place that you put all of your credits, but delineate it by page and what the item is. Another thing that's required is that you publish regularly. The important thing here is, especially if you're writing for a barony must publish a newsletter that meets these minimum content requirements at least once every 3 months, once a quarter. If you miss one of these once a quarter newsletters, the barony will lose its status and you will be downgraded to a shire. You will not pass go, you will not collect $200. It will be pretty much immediate. This is a problem. Don't go there. So once a quarter, once every 3 months is the absolute minimum, but it means there's no wiggle room. I recommend, if you can, publish monthly, because then you just have a regular schedule and you don't have to like, wait, is this a quarterly month or is it not a quarterly month? Just publish all the time. But the important thing is just be regular. So don't be like, oh, well, we're publishing quarterly, but everything's going good in my life, so I'm just going to go publish monthly extra, and then we'll go back to publishing quarterly. Like, that confuses the world. So pick a schedule and stick to it. If you're going to publish quarterly, publish quarterly. You're going to publish bi-monthly, so every 2 months. Publish every 2 months. Just stick to the schedule so that you and the people who want to read your newsletter know when to look for it. If you need to change your publication schedule, you need to work with the Kingdom Chronicler. You do not, as the Local Chronicler, have authority to change your own schedule. You have to ask permission of the Kingdom Chronicler. Most Kingdom Chroniclers are pretty flexible about this, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, but at the same time, you can't just change it unilaterally. You have to ask permission. Okay, these are a couple things that are not required but are good. Anything other than the required content is just for fun. These can include reports by officers, and if you're working with a barony, landed nobility. If you're working with the principality, the prince and princess, right? The officer reports are not a requirement for publication. So if somebody is not organized enough to have a report to you that particular month, you do not need to wait for them and say, I couldn't publish on time because they didn't get it to me. Like, it really doesn't matter. Anything cool, pretty, interesting, informative, right? Artwork, poems, articles, games, interviews, photographs, advice columns, tutorials, recipes, all those things are awesome, and you absolutely should include them, and people should be helping to contribute this content for you. Be creative, have fun. You can develop it too. Other people can provide it for you, but you know what? Don't drive yourself crazy if these things aren't happening, okay? They are not strictly required, and so it's okay. But if you can include them, that's awesome. Here are a few things to avoid. You want to avoid anything that's controversial or negative. This could be criticism of other participants. That could be people in leadership. This could be newcomers. We want to show the best of what we are as the Society for Creative Anachronism. We don't want to talk about mundane politics. We do not want any kind of snark or sarcasm, and we do not want any kind of adult language or humor. So what happens if you get an officer report and they're like, hey, I would love to tell you all about how great things are in the archery community, but our ANS minister, who promised us that they would get us new targets, hasn't been doing their job, and they stink. You can't publish that, because that's someone criticizing another participant. Here are a few things you can do. First of all, you can go back to the submitter and say, could you please change what you've written? Either cut out what you said that was negative, or put it a different way, or if they say no, or they say like, I don't want to do that, or you don't have enough time, you can edit it yourself. That's part of your authority as chronicler. You can just like, you know what, I can't publish this, and just cut it right out. Or you can just say, you know what, I can't change this, I can't update this, so I'm just not going to publish this letter. If this becomes a problem, or you're not sure what to do, contact your regional or principality chronicler, who's supposed to help you, or you can talk to the Kingdom Chronicler. Your Kingdom Chronicler should always be willing to help you decide how do we deal with this kind of scenario. Okay, so now you've created the newsletter. Yay, it's beautiful. So what do? You need to save it as a PDF. We don't want it in Word. We don't want it in PowerPoint. We don't want it in JPEG. We want it as a PDF. The file needs to be under the name, group name. I gave a lovely example, Barony of Provincia. Provincia, and then the month, February, and then the year, 2022, and then the word newsletter. So it should look something like this. Provincia, February 2022, newsletter. Now, the next thing you need to do is distribute it. Make sure everybody knows you've gotten it done. And also, remember, the newsletter is due by the 5th of each month. Personally, I like to work ahead. So I would normally try to have it done by the 1st of the month, so that if something goes wrong, if something gets weird, you can still have some catch-up time and not miss your deadline to the 5th of the month. But it needs to be done and sent up to the various sources by the 5th. Who do you send it to? You can send it to your Kingdom Chronicler. We need it for our archives, for our references, and we also need to know, like, hey, everybody's publishing regularly. You also need to send it to your regional chronicler. So if you're at the Principality of Windheim, Windheim at Chronicler. If you're in the Central region, Central at Chronicler. If you're in the Southern region, Southern at Chronicler. We also need to send it to the Society Archivist, which is digital archivist at sca.org. They maintain a record of all of the newsletters created across the entire society, and it's kind of amazing. So we want to make sure that your work is included in that. So make sure you send it to at least these 3 people, right? Kingdom Chronicler, your regional chronicler, and the Society Archivist. And then you want to distribute it to the people. You can publish a copy on your branch's Facebook group or Discord. You should publish a copy on the website. You should coordinate with your web minister to make sure that this is possible. You should also email it to your local leadership, to your local group seneschal. If you're in a barony and you have landed nobility, they should be getting a copy as well. You could send it to the king and queen or the crown prince and princess. If you're in the principality, you can also send it to the territorial prince and princess. People are interested in reading what you have to say. Some kings and queens are much more like, I want to see every copy. Others say, I have other things to read, but better to send it to them and have them decide whether or not they read it than have them waiting to hear from you and not get it. Some groups still have email lists or listservs. Make sure that that is used as well as a means to distribute it. Do not be shy about distributing your newsletter. Everyone needs to know what's going on. Okay, here are a couple just sort of general suggestions. I recommend that you create an in case of emergency newsletter template that has just the required content. The regular meeting times, assuming those don't change, the contact information for the officers, the legal disclaimer, all those things. Make sure that you have just like super basic newsletter template. Make sure your seneschal has a copy. If you are not able to do your job as chronicler, it's the seneschal's job to make sure that some newsletter is published. Giving them some kind of a basic template so they can just update the key information and publish just so you can maintain your requirement is really helpful if your life falls apart. My laptop died, so all my files are gone. What can I do? I had a medical emergency and I'm in the hospital and I can't publish. This way, the responsibilities that you have as an officer are still being met even when catastrophic things happen. When catastrophic things happen, please communicate your needs to your upline as soon as possible, or have someone communicate them on your behalf. We are happy to help and give advice as needed. Your Kingdom Chronicler is also happy to help as needed, but if we don't know what's going on, we can't work with you and give you grace and give you assistance and support if you don't tell us what you need. So please communicate regularly with your upline, either direct upline or with your Kingdom Chronicler, to make sure that the work is getting done. One of the things we need to talk about is release forms. These can be found either at our Ansteorra Chronicler website, where we have forms and publications, or at sca.org in their document library. We have a whole chronicler section, and those have those release forms as well. We need artistic releases for artwork and articles and other fun stuff. You need a photographer release for any photographs, and we need a model release for, I know it says portrait style pictures of people. There's been some confusion about that. Really, it needs to be anyone whose face is recognizable in your publication. This can get a little bit of a pain in the neck. I apologize for that, but this way, it's making sure that we have permission to use people's image. Even though, like, yes, it's a public place, yes, they post it on social media, we need to make sure that they are aware and they give us permission to publish it. Newsletters are a more lasting medium than a website or a social media account. We have stricter rules about when we can use people's images than either of those 2 other sources. You do not need it for officer reports or event ads or announcements. My suggestion is do not include pictures of minors if it can be avoided. For some people, it's super easy. For some people, it's super complicated because a minor cannot sign their own model release. They cannot give permission for their image to be used on their own because they're a minor. So you have to have signed permission forms for a model from all legal guardians. If their legal guardians are their biological parents, who are married to each other and living in the same household and regularly participate in the SCA together, getting those model forms signed is relatively easy. When their guardians are not in the same residence, if the guardians are possibly not in good speaking terms to one another, that kind of doesn't matter. We still need to have signed forms from all of them. So it's much easier in the grand scheme of things for us to just not publish images of minors if we can avoid it. When you have these release forms, artist release form for the various artwork, photographer release forms for the various photographs, and then model releases for the various images of people. What do we do with them? First of all, you need to create a folder in your Cat Chronicler Google Drive and save them there. And you also need to send them to the Kingdom Chronicler. Please don't just keep them privately in your own space where we have no access to them. Please send them to the Kingdom Chronicler. We're trying to establish a directory for releases. The more that people send these release information to us, the fewer times people say, oh, I already gave permission for this image to be used. Why are we asking again? The more open communication we have about what releases are available, the better. If you're confused, who can you ask for help? You can ask the Kingdom Chronicler, kingdom@chronicler.ansteorra.org, or one of your regional uplines. So if you're in the Principality of Vindheim, vindheim@chronicler.ansteorra.org will be the person who is in charge of helping you out with this. We also have Central Regional and then Southern Regional. I hope that helps you get a sense of what we need to do as a local chronicler. I hope that gives you some confidence. Thank you again for all of your willingness to work and volunteer in this wonderful office. Have fun.